Hi everyone, welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Mike.
I am Rainbow.
And today it's another interesting article about global warming.
Oh, that's a big topic.
These articles are interesting, but they are also kind of sad because you think about all the big changes that are happening around the world to our planet, to our lives, and to animals because the planet is warming up, global warming.
Speaking of animals, one of the pictures I see on the internet that reminds me of global warming the most is the sea turtles who have passed away with the straws stuck in their noses, or the birds who have died and they have plastic bags in their mouths because people throw away trash in the ocean and they are not taking care of the environment, and the environment is no longer a good place for animals to live.
Of course, yeah, pollution and garbage can affect animals in lots of terrible ways. And also just the fact that the world is getting warmer can affect animals in lots of ways. You mentioned sea turtles. A lot of their eggs will be male or female depending on the temperature. And as the temperature rises, they become, I think more often they become female. So we have lots of lady turtles out there, but no boy turtles, which of course means that making new turtles is harder. So as the world gets warmer and as pollution gets worse, we see lots of different effects. You guys might have noticed that the weather in the summer and the winter in Taiwan is different than it was 5 or 10 years ago. So we can even see it in our lives. Now, today's article is about how we can measure the changing of the temperature on the planet, how it affects birds. And we can actually measure it. We can actually see how birds are different than they were 10 or 20 years ago. Let's check out the article. According to a recent study, the size and shape of birds are changing, most likely in response to rising temperatures caused by climate change. The study of over 70,000 dead birds showed that birds have been getting smaller over the past 4 decades, and their beaks and wings have been getting larger. Specifically, scientists found the birds' lower leg bones, an indicator of overall body size, had shortened by 2.4%, and wingspans had increased by 1.3% across all species.
All right, let's get started with the article. As Mike said, there are studies about this. According to a recent study, the size and shape of birds are changing, most likely in response to rising temperatures caused by climate change. This is exactly what we talked about in the introduction. The study of over 70,000 dead birds showed that birds have been getting smaller over the past 4 decades. They are shrinking in size. Every generation of birds is smaller and smaller, and their beaks and wings have been getting larger. So this is very strange. The bird itself is smaller, but the beak and the wing is larger. So the bird probably looks so different from generations ago if we compare the picture of the same bird. Let's find out more about what the scientists discovered.
Yeah, absolutely. It says specifically, scientists found the bird's lower leg bones, an indicator of overall body size, had shortened by 2.4%. So the lower leg bones are getting shorter, and this is important because the leg size also shows the body size. In humans, it's kind of the same.
Yeah, it does.
If you measure someone's leg bone, it gives you a basic idea of how tall they are because everything often sort of matches in some way. Correct. So, as the leg bones had shortened by 2.4% and wingspans had increased by 1.3%. across all species. So the leg bones, meaning the body, is getting smaller, and the wings are getting bigger. Now it's by 1-2%, but remember, this is only 40 years. When you consider that birds have been around for millions of years, that is a big change in a very short time. 1 or 2%. When we talk about percent, we're basically talking about a number out of 100. We're giving you an idea of how big something is by showing you, well, if this is 100, this is how much of that 100. We often use this when looking at our math scores, right? Or your test scores or something like that. If you get 60% on a quiz, that means you might have gotten 60 out of 100, but you also might have gotten 6 out of 10 or something like that. So percent just converts anything into how much out of 100 to give you an idea, a more clear idea. Roy got 90% of the questions correct on his last English test. Well, that's really good.
Yeah,
so
not
he
bad
probably
at
got
all.
90 out of 100 or 9 out of 10 or 45 out of 50. That would be 90% too.
All right, and we have the next word, which is species. Now, species is a type of animal, specifically. We could say a type of animal, a type of insect, human beings are a species, the different groups of creatures on the earth, we can call it that. So, for example, we can say some species of spiders are as large as a dinner plate. So, we have the spider family. We have many different species or types of spiders. Some have long legs, some have shorter legs, some have stripes on them. Those are different species of the same kind. So, I'm very scared of spiders actually, but I would definitely be afraid to see one that's
as big as a dinner plate. That's a big spider. I don't want that.
I wonder if it's the body or the legs or everything.
The whole thing. I think it's actually called a bird-eating spider.
Is it true that they eat birds?
They eat birds.
Oh my gosh!
Little birds.
Oh my god,
But
that's
they
so scary.
eat birds. Yeah, that's a big spider. All right, well, when we think of that, let's take a break, and then we'll be back with more about how global warming is changing the birds.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。今天的课文标题是 Warmer Planet, Smaller Birds， 鸟类因暖化而缩小。根据一份最近的研究，鸟类的大小和外形正在改变，这很可能是为了因应气候变迁导致的气温上升。那科学家他们分析了超过7万只死亡的鸟类，就发现说鸟类在过去40年来变得越来越小，而它们的这个鸟喙、嘴巴的部分还有翅膀则变大了。确切来说，它们的小腿骨缩短了2.4%。那这个呢是整个身体大小的一个指标，而翼展增加了1.3%，翼展 wingspan 就是指说鸟类翅膀完全展开之后，左右两端之间的宽度。好，那么再来看单字 percent， 它表示1%。species 或是念作 species， 这个字是指物种或是种，注意它的单复数同形哦。那 Rainbow 老师提到说，某些种类的蜘蛛是有条纹的，我们来学一下 stripe。S-T-R-I-P-E stripe 表示条纹，进入到课文中。
The study's findings are consistent with Allen's rule. Animals in warmer climates tend to have smaller bodies and larger appendages to help them maintain a constant body temperature. In the case of birds, they cool themselves off by sending blood to their beaks and wings. Birds with larger wings or beaks have more surface area to allow for faster cooling. At the same time, smaller bodies hold on to less heat. While many animals are adapting to climate change, some will not be able to. Rather than hoping that nature will resolve global warming, the best thing we can do is stop it before it affects the animal kingdom further. All right, so what is it that's causing birds' bodies to get smaller, their wings to get bigger? Is it because of global warming? And why is it changing birds in this way? Well, let's get back to the article to find out more. It says the study's findings are consistent with Allen's rule.
What's Allen's rule?
Well, we're going to find out what that is, but it says the study's findings are consistent. They kind of match for the scientists, you know, what they found by measuring all of these birds. It matches Allen's rule, which is something from science. It says, what is Allen's rule? Animals in warmer climates tend to have smaller bodies and larger appendages to to help them maintain a constant body temperature.
Oh, appendages, that will be your
Arms,
body parts,
legs, things like that. Exactly. So if you live in a hot place, you don't want to get too hot. If you have a big body, it keeps all that heat. But if you have a skinny body with long arms and legs, it helps the heat to leave your body
quicker, more easily,
so you don't overheat.
Makes
which of course,
sense.
for humans, for mammals, for warm-blooded animals, overheating is a very serious problem.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we have an adjective here that's consistent. So as Mike says, consistent is matching with, being the same as, and continuously the same. So if something is consistent, that means it's always the same. So if a person is consistent, that means maybe they're always in a good mood. It's not like one day they're happy, one day they're sad. They are a pretty consistent person. So each day you see them, they have a smile on their face and their mood is very regular. You don't have to worry about a random mode or people getting angry at you. Consistent is quite good for a person. If two people are consistent, that means their habits maybe match with each other. And if things are consistent, they are also similar. Jan's description of the night's events is consistent with her husband's. So in this case, Jan remembers this night. Her husband remembers this night. The way they remember it is the same.
Okay, they have the same basic memories of what happened.
Exactly. So the idiom here is consistent with. So just remember that those three words go together and that means matches with or is the same as. Okay, so let's go on to the article. In the case of birds, they cool themselves off by sending blood to their beaks and wings. Birds with larger wings or beaks have more surface area to allow for faster cooling. So we see that these body parts expanded because the world is hotter. So they need to get this heat out of the place. So they have longer wings, bigger beaks, so their bodies are circulating, meaning the energy or the air is going around and flowing. At the same time, smaller bodies hold on to less heat. So let's say a person is quite thin, their body will not have that much heat, so maybe they get cold a little more easily because the heat leaves their body quicker. I definitely notice that. For myself, it's harder for me to stay warm if it's very, very, very cold, so I try to stay warm myself. Okay, and what else happens after this?
Well, getting back to the bigger picture of the world changing and animals changing, it says while many animals are adapting to climate change, some will not be able to.
Are they going to die?
Well, we're kind of seeing that birds are adapting to climate change. Their bodies are actually changing. So they are able to do that, but some other animals might not be. I mean, a lot of us have seen the trouble polar bears are having.
Exactly.
As the ice disappears during the summer, now they have to swim further distances. Their bodies are not designed to be swimming animals. They can do it, but not as well as they can hunt and find food when they're walking on ice. So polar bears will have more difficulty adapting to a warmer world than some other animals would. That's why people are very worried about the polar bears these days. Now, to adapt, this verb means to change based on the situation, based on what's around you, the circumstances. You can't do things the same way all the time because sometimes the world changes around you, so you have to adapt. If you move to a new country, you'd have to adapt by eating different food, maybe speaking a different language, maybe wearing different clothes because it's colder or warmer during the summer. You can't just always do things exactly the same way. As the world changes, you have to change with
adjust.
And that is what we mean by saying adapt. For example, Logan has not adapted to his new school yet. Maybe he's gone from junior high to senior high, and junior high, the teachers paid more attention to you. In senior high, you have to be more responsible for yourself. And he's finding it difficult to sort of, be his own boss, as it were.
Adapting is very important in life and especially in nature. So let's go ahead and look at the next sentence. sentence, rather than hoping that nature will resolve global warming, the best thing we can do is stop it before it affects the animal kingdom further. Now, we know that human beings have a big role and responsibility to protect the planet because of all the pollution we are producing, the factories, the meat we are eating. We have a big responsibility. We can't just say this has nothing to do with us. We have to do something about it to resolve the problem.
Exactly, yes. To resolve this verb, it basically means to bring something to an end, to bring it to a conclusion. Often you might think of the end of a movie or a TV show where the hero wins and, is reunited with his true love and everything kind of wraps up very nicely. They sort of tell you all the things that happened in the story and bring it all to an end. It resolves. When you tell someone a story, you have to sort of show them that this is the ending of the story. The action is over and now the story has ended. It has resolved or come to an end, come to a conclusion of some kind. There is little hope that the two countries can resolve their conflict.
Oh no, they're going to be in war the whole time.
Well, at least they're not going to be getting along, and sometimes it takes a long time to resolve
generations.
Things. Possibly even generations or more than that. And as you said, it's not good for us to just trust that the Earth will resolve global warming for us.
Exactly.
We need to do something about it. But what we need to do now is talk about our what do you think question.
Okay, so let me give you the question today. What are some other ways that animals cool themselves off? Oh, I can think of panting for a dog.
Dogs pant, that's right. Humans, of course, we sweat when we're hot. Dogs pant. I think one of my favorite, and one that you can actually see, is elephants use their ears to cool themselves off. Right? They have those big, thin ears. The blood goes in there. It cools them off. So there you go. That's one way. But yes, there are many other ways. Think of skinny cheetahs versus very small snow leopards that have to be much warmer. Snow leopards have big bodies and short legs. Cheetahs have thin bodies and long legs. There you go, all sorts of things you can recognize and identify out there in the world, and hopefully we will continue to be able to recognize and identify these animals because they won't change too much because of global warming, which we caused. That's not very fair, is it? Let's be kind to the earth and the animals and each other, and we'll see you guys back here very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
刚刚说的那项研究的发现啊，跟 Allen's Rule 艾伦法则是一致的，也就是说，在比较温暖的气候中的动物，往往身体比较小，然后附属肢体比较大，这可以帮助它们维持恒定的体温。以鸟类的例子来说，它们是透过把这个血液输送到鸟喙和翅膀，来让自己降温。那当这个翅膀或是鸟喙比较大，就会有比较多的表面积可以更快冷却，那同时呢，身体又比较小，这个蓄热就比较少了，所以适合在这种比较温暖气候。好，文中的 appendage 就表示附属肢体，像是手脚啊、尾巴、鳍啊等等，从那种身体延伸出去的部分。再来看单字 consistent， 它是形容一致的、符合的。Rainbow 老师在讲解的时候，他用到 random，R-A-N-D-O-M，random 则是形容是随机的、任意的。好，那虽然许多动物正在适应气候变迁，但是有些动物没办法做到。我们不用期待说大自然会解决全球暖化的问题，最好的办法就是在暖化更进一步影响动物界之前，阻止它。好，我们来看单字 adapt。adapt 这个动词表示适应，那么 resolve 是动词，它可以表达解决或是消除，像是解决问题啊、消除疑惑等等。老师们最后提到说，像狗会透过张嘴喘气来散热嘛，然后大象则是会透过拍打耳朵。那补充两个动词哦 ，pant P-A-N-T 它可以表达喘气的意思 ，flap F-L-A-P 这个字还可以表达摆动、拍打，或者是振翅高飞那个振翅振的动作。这边4个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看第一个重点是 in the case of 加名词，是指以什么的例子或是情况来说。case 在这边当名词，它是表达情况或是案例。例如 berries are good for your health. In the case of blueberries, they can help lower blood pressure。莓果对健康有益，那以蓝莓为例，它可以帮助降低血压哦。第二重点是 cool 名词 off， 它是表达使什么来降温，使什么冷却下来。例如 Let's get some ice cream to cool us off。我们去吃点冰淇淋消暑降温吧。第三个重点是 rather than， 当介系词的时候，后面是接名词或动名词，用来表达是什么而不是什么，与其怎么样怎么样。这时候它相当于 instead of。例如 rather than taking a taxi。They walked home. 他们走回家，而不是搭计程车。第四个重点是 the best thing that somebody can do is 加上 to 加原形动词。好，这时候呢，就是表达某人能做的最好方式就是点点点。而这个句型它就是以 the best thing 为先行词，后面再用关系子句 that somebody can do 来修饰，这个 that 可以省略。然后 the best thing that somebody can do 就是表达某人能做的最好方式了。我们接着再接单数动词 is， 然后再接不定词 to be 来当主词补语。可是啊，当你那个 that 关系子句里面有动词 do 的时候，我们句尾不定词 to be 的 to 通常会省略哦。例如 The best thing you can do is talk to someone you trust。你能做的最好方式就是找你信任的人谈一谈。那有没有看到 is 后面直接接了原形动词 talk， 它就是从 to talk 省略而来的哦。好，那么以上这些讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
According to a recent study, the size and shape of birds are changing, most likely in response to rising temperatures caused by climate change. The study of over 70,000 dead birds showed that birds have been getting smaller over the past 4 decades, and their beaks and wings have been getting larger. Specifically, scientists found the birds' lower leg bones, an indicator of overall body size, had shortened by 2.4%, and wingspans had increased by 1.3% across all species. The study's findings are consistent with Allen's rule. Animals in warmer climates tend to have smaller bodies and larger appendages to help them maintain a constant body temperature. In the case of birds, they cool themselves off by sending blood to their beaks and wings. Birds with larger wings or beaks have more surface area to allow for faster cooling. At the same time, smaller bodies hold on to less heat. While many animals are adapting to climate change, some will not be able to. Rather than hoping that nature will resolve global warming, the best thing we can do is stop it before it affects the animal kingdom further.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen.
And I'm Sam.
We're going to play a game called Word Drop, where each of us has 3 words or phrases on these cards that we have not looked at yet, right?
Nope.
We're going to try to work it into a conversation as casually as possible. And I'll go first.
Okay.
All right. So I think that summer is probably one of the worst seasons of the year. I mean, I know people like to go to the beach and go to the pool and swim and blah, 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 whatever, but for me, I hate it because I'm always sweating. I could just sit there and just sweat. And then people are like, oh my God, you're sweating, ew. I'm like, it's not my fault that I'm sweating. It's just my body. So like, I'm sorry that it's not easy for me to like cool off my body or cool my body off, you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially living in Taiwan, it is really, really hot. And in the summers, it's not just hot, but it's also humid. It's so wet. And so it's like, okay, I already have to deal with how hot it is. And now I have to live in like 100% humidity? That's like crazy.
Yeah, but one of the best ways to go about it is just to be in a room with like air conditioning and just sit there the whole day and just be like, I'm not going outside. That's what I do during the summer, which is why my electricity bill is always like skyrocket high. But it's just like the only way that I can resolve the issue.
Well, you know, that is one way that kind of humans have learned to handle the heat, is they kind of, you know, we've got this air conditioning and all this kind of stuff. But if we didn't have those things and we still lived in this kind of climate, then we would have to just, you know, adapt.
Adaptability. Sometimes it's really hard to do that because like when you're adapting to things, like your body and your mind naturally is just like, I want to like, you know, do something like to keep everything the same. I want everything to just to be exactly the same. It makes me feel more comfortable when everything just happens and I can predict it. It's just scary when everything's changing all the time. I just like things to be more consistent.
Oh, okay. So you are somebody who kind of prefers consistency and you prefer air conditioning and you prefer all these kind of like creature comforts, and so you must have a really hard time living in Taiwan where it's hot and wet and crowded and you constantly need to change and kind of adapt to what's going on, right? So for me, what I think is a little bit interesting is that luckily, since we are humans, we are able to figure out all these different ways to adapt and change. And I think that's something that really makes our species interesting. So yeah, I think that that is a really cool thing.
You're right. But I do love living in Taiwan though.
I do too.
Yeah.
And
See you next time.